Hi guys, my name is Nicolette Mashile. I'm also known as the Financial Bunny. Today I'm going to be giving you the first time property buyer guide so that you are well armed to buy your first property. Now remember that none of what I say here constitutes as financial advice. If you are looking for financial advice, please speak to somebody that is certified and registered with the FSCA. Now a lot of people think I'm crazy when I say you need to at least have 12 months of planning before you make your first purchase, especially if it is your first property that you're going to be buying, and especially even more if you are going to be using a loan or some sort of credit facility. I know some people have argued that perhaps maybe instead of looking at the home loan credit facility, there might be other options. I'm not going to get into that today. Today, specifically, when I speak about the loan, I'm speaking about the home loan facility. So let's get straight into it. What is one of the first things that you probably need to do? I would suggest that one of the first things you need to make sure that is really spotless is your credit status, your credit rating, your credit history, whatever you choose to call it, but you need to have a healthy credit score. But what does it actually mean, and why do you need to have a healthy credit score? Well, financial institutions like banks or any other credit lender, before they actually grant you a credit loan application or they grant you any type of credit, they are going to look at two specific things. One thing that they're going to look at is your affordability, and the next thing they're going to look at is your credit history. Your affordability speaks to how much are you able to afford. Now remember, the benchmark is that you cannot use more than 30% of your income to purchase a home or to finance a home or to pay for an installment on a credit application for a home. Now, they need to make sure that you have enough disposable income so that you are able to pay for the supposed amount of money that you would like to borrow from the financial institution. So in other words, you cannot be overcommitted in terms of what other things you are paying or what other credit agreements you are honoring on that specific income. Now, if you do have additional income, this would be a great time for you to add those onto your actual income so you can prove your affordability. Now, the reason why I say 12 months is because this gives you a nice opportunity to perhaps maybe if you are realizing that you don't have the affordability that is necessary to purchase the house that you're looking to purchase, then this could be a good opportunity for you to actually add on an additional income to try and actually give your affordability a bit of a bump up the cheese of cheese. What was that song? Bump the cheese up. Yes. Now, the second thing that I spoke about that the banks look at is what is called your credit rating. And basically, all of us who have had some sort of credit or are looking for credit have a credit rating. Your credit rating is based on a score, and it's called the credit score. Now, the credit score indicates to a financial institution whether or not you are a good credit person, whether they can actually advance some type of credit to you, and whether you are good at honoring your credit agreement. So do you pay? But not only do you pay on time, and do you make sure that you pay the right amount of money? It is important that you do that because at the end of the day, that is how you are prejudged. Unfortunately, that's the reality of life. People, even us, in normal circumstances, we would look at what you have previously done in a specific thing before we actually give you or give you the benefit of the doubt that you might know how to do a specific thing. Look at when you're looking for a job. They look for your CV to go and look at your experience, and only based on your experience and maybe your qualifications, then do they come back to you and actually say, actually, maybe you could be a perfect fit for the job. So look at it the same way when it comes to financial institutions with those two things. Look at it as qualifications and experience. So your qualifications would be your affordability that qualify you for a certain credit amount, and then the experience would be now your credit history, your credit behavior on previous other credit agreements. Now, if you are in the clear on both of those, then kudos to you. You could potentially be in a good space for you to be able to apply for a home loan. But if you're not, maybe this is the time for you to start doing a quick cleanup when it comes to your credit agreements. So go back now to your credit report, which is what you get from all the credit bureaus, and look at which of your credit agreements have you maybe been very sketchy and shady on, where you've missed some payments or you've paid not, you haven't paid enough, some of them might be already in default, and some of them you might have judgments on. Make sure you clean up your credit score, because the banks will look at, most of them for a home loan, will look at the last 24 months of your credit behavior in terms of how do you behave when you are in a credit and you are bound by a credit agreement. After that, you need to raise what is called a deposit. Now, a lot of people have argued this idea of having a deposit when you are purchasing. For most of the banks, if you are a first-time buyer, they will generally give you 100% loan. But for some people, they might not be able to give you 100% loan. So you will need to kind of buffer up with a deposit. Let me tell you two things that a deposit do for you. Number one, it means that you're going to borrow less. That already is good on its own. You don't need to stress about anything else. If you're going to be borrowing less, it means you're going to be charged less, right? It's simple as that. But the second thing is that it gives the financial institution that is going into this partnership with you to purchase your home and a comfort and a good feeling that maybe you do know how to manage your finances if you are able to actually save. In some circumstances, some banks will require you to raise a 10% deposit before they can grant you that home loan. So I think a deposit is really good if you are really somebody that might not have a good affordability but still qualifies to get a home loan, but maybe you need to borrow less, right? So and also for me personally, and the reason why I bring up this 12-month story is because of a deposit. For you to raise a deposit, it might take you 12 months to be able to save enough money. So let's say you want to save 5,000 Rand every single month. Now 5 times 12 is 60. So you will have 60,000 Rand that is already saved. That's already 10% of 600,000 Rand, which could potentially be a bachelor or studio or a 1-bedroom apartment. In some areas, it's an actual house. It's a full-on house, right? So I think that might be a great way for you to also train yourself in getting used to the installment that you might be having to pay once your home loan applications goes through and you now have a bond registered. Very, very important to raise that deposit. Now, once you've done that, before you even start raising a deposit or saving up for a deposit, you need to decide on how much you are willing to spend on a house. This is really important because at the end of the day, you need to go in there with a buying strategy so that you are not swayed. Remember that real estate agents are salespeople, so they will try to sway you. They will try to sell you the house at the highest price. You need to be able to say to the real estate agent, I only have 600,000 Rand and nothing more, and that's the only amount I'm willing to take out a home loan on. So it's important that you, before you even go out and actually start saving for a deposit and doing all those sorts of things, have a buying strategy in terms of price. Know exactly how much, because remember that it's not just the purchase price that you've got to worry about, it's also the transfer fees. But if you know exactly what your limit is, then you do create predictability. You will know by now that I love predictability when it comes to your finances, because it makes life a little bit easier for you to know exactly what is going to be coming up and what you can expect. Nothing is worse than getting surprises when it comes to personal finances. I don't like it, and I'm assuming that nobody else likes it because you like to plan, and planning is very important, right? So let's say, for instance, your limit is 600,000 Rand. Now you can already calculate how much more extra you need to save for the deposit plus the transfer fees. What I've found is that people think that they shouldn't be paying transfer fees. Yes, you might not pay transfer duty because a 600,000 Rand house falls under the 1 million threshold for you to be tax exempted from paying the transfer duty, but you do pay the transfer fees. And the transfer fees basically are a fee that you pay to the lawyers for their expertise and their service to move the title deed from the seller into your name. So I would like people to get an understanding that this is very important, because without these people, you do not have the qualification to be able to pull off that service. So you do need the learned people, and unfortunately, it is a costed service, so you do have to pay them. Luckily though, those costs are very much regulated, and I say regulated because the industry regulates them. So they won't charge you out of the norm randomly, right? And some of the banks, what they do is they go into what is called agreements with these transfer lawyers to say, give the person, if they are a BEE person, give them 25% discount. So there's all sorts of ways to try and assist you. So remember, it is important that you're going to be paying a transfer fees, but the other set of fees for lawyers that you're going to be paying is you are going to be paying bond fees. Remember that your bond needs to be registered, right? And that is also part of the service that you're going to be offered that does need to be paid. And unfortunately, it is paid by the buyer and not the seller. So that is something that I just need to raise up. So when you are knowing exactly how much money you're going to need for you to be able to purchase this home, do include the transfer fees plus the bond registration fees if you're going to be buying using a credit home loan facility. Now let's move on. Now let's say you've got your figures and you've settled that you've only got 700,000 rand to spend on everything. So let's say perhaps maybe you've got 650,000 rand to pay for a home. What is next is that you now need to go and view the homes, right? Again, be very clear in your strategy where you want to live, where you want to buy, but also at the back of your mind while you are doing this. Remember, if it's your first time buying a property, for some people, they are lucky enough for it not to be their only property that they're going to buy. But in most cases, it's not the property that you're going to live in for the rest of your life. So it might be a property that will eventually become an investment property. Now, keep in mind that if it is going to become an investment property, you've got to buy in an area that is going to attract some type of customer when you move out and this thing becomes an investment property. You don't want to find yourself saying, you know what, it's okay, I'm the one who's going to live there, so I don't mind living in a specific area. And then when it becomes an investment property, you no longer can actually put it anywhere. So I think that's also one of it's one of the most important things for you to remember, is that this thing, it's the strategy there, the exit strategy for you is that it's going to end up becoming an investment property. So make sure it's in an area that is suitable for another person who would like to actually rent it out from you. I think that's something that a lot of people really struggle with because they're so desperate to just buy a property or a first property. Once you know exactly where you want to live, what size you want to live in, go out there and now go and look for the properties. And I would say, please go and view the property. There's many people who buy properties without actually viewing them. I can't think of anything else more ludicrous than that, because you need to actually be able to see what you are buying and get a better understanding and a feel of what you are buying, right? Also, just getting a feel of the area, being able to ask questions. It's very difficult to ask specific questions if you are not physically at the place which you are buying. So I would suggest that you actually go to the place and see the place. Speak to the other tenants or other owners that are in that space. Speak to the trustees, speak to the body corporate. Get a feeling of you now owning a place there, because it is an investment, whether you're living in it or whether you are actually going to use it to get rental income. It's still an investment and it's still a big ticket purchase. So make sure that all those things are in order. Once you have done that and you are happy with the place, sign the offer to purchase. But I always say, make sure you take the offer to purchase home so that you can get acquainted with what is in the offer to purchase. Now, some of you guys might know my story of how I signed an offer to purchase, and then the next day I tried to get out of that offer to purchase, only to be told that there's actually a suspensive clause in there that either needs to get fulfilled or unfulfilled for me to be able to get out of that deal. And I had to end up settling out of court because, unfortunately or fortunately, there was a bank that was willing to give me a loan. Now, that's one of the clauses that you need to be able to understand in the offer to purchase before you actually go ahead and purchase a property, right? So take it home, sleep on it, think about it, because the thing is, when you are excited about buying a property, chances are you are going to want to sign immediately. And that's not always a good thing. So rather go home, sleep on it, because you might sit that same night and go through again either your private property or your property 24 and spot another house that might even be cheaper for you to be able to get. And now you've made an impulsive decision and you're now tied to this offer to purchase, right? So I think it's important for you to be able to, before you sign the offer to purchase, to get a better understanding of what is in the offer to purchase. Another clause you need to be very well aware of in the offer to purchase is the voetstoots clause. And basically the voetstoots clause says you are buying as is. So it is your latent and your patent defects. The latent and patent defects are issues with the actual structure of the house, things that maybe are in the house that you are unable to see or you are able to see. Now it says that you are buying as is. So if a seller did not know about specific issues with the house, then you have bought as is. So I think it's important that you are very clear on those kind of things so that you make sure you sort those kind of things out and you are well aware of that clause that is in there. But of course, if there's a mistake in the house that the seller did know about and didn't disclose, that's when you've got legal recourse. Now, after you've now decided that you are settling on this property, this is the one you want to buy, you would then go ahead and fill in the application form for you to get a home loan facility. Once you have done that, some of the real estate agents will offer their bond originator services and they will do all that on your behalf. In other instances, you could do it yourself. Now, as I probably mentioned in another video, there's a place called Mortgage Market where you literally put in one application and it goes to the 5 different banks in South Africa and they will come back with an offer. Once you get an offer, remember you can negotiate. Please negotiate. It is important to negotiate. Don't take the offer as is if you are not comfortable with that offer. Right. Now remember, also going back to the suspensive clause, you are legally allowed to make a counter offer to the seller and say, I don't want to go to all the banks. So in my counter offer, I only want my offer to come from a Standard Bank at 10% or from an FNB at 5%. So whatever it is, that's a counter offer that you are offering to the seller and they need to either accept it or decline it. Now, when you go to the banks and they do give you an offer, I always say what they do is they give you what is called an offer in principle or an approval in principle. And that is now dependent on other checks that they still need to do. And one of the big checks that they still need to do if they're giving you an approval in principle is the valuation of the house. They will go back and value the house at the price in which it is being sold to you. The bank sometimes will tell you that the house is overpriced. Remember, the banks also have a big interest in the property that you are purchasing because they are putting in their money too. So the purchase of the property needs to be according to the value of the property. This also sometimes helps you in when you are getting scammed by the seller and the seller has overcharged you on the property purchase. So I always say to people, if the bank says, listen, this is a little bit steep, rather listen to the bank. But you can get your own valuation. And if you feel that it's a fair price, then Bob's your uncle. It's a fair price. There's nothing that you can do. But unfortunately, probably that bank will not fund that property, or they might say to you, we'll fund 80% of it. Right. Now you've got your approval in principle. You can also use that to go and negotiate at another bank. So let's say, for instance, Standard Bank has given you 10%. You can take that and go to your own bank and say, if Standard Bank is giving me 10%, surely you guys can give me 8% or 9%. Push as much as you can. Remember, a lower interest rate means that you pay lower interest charge overall on the whole lifetime of the loan. So that's also quite important for you to make sure that you can negotiate as quickly as possible. One little thing that you must also remember is what is called the initiation fee, which is to initiate the bond. Make sure that you actually pay that off at once. Do not finance that thing. It's 4,000 rand that's financed over 20 years. Trust me, it's a lot of money that you don't need to be paying. So try and pay the initiation fee off as quickly as possible. So what will happen is that your bond will go through, it will get approved, and then you've got to pay, obviously, if you had a deposit, you would pay the deposit to the sellers, transfer lawyers, and then the bank will hire its own bond registration attorneys that you also have to pay for their service, as I've already mentioned, and this all gets registered at the title deeds office. While all this is happening concurrently, the transfer lawyers will be communicating with you in terms of municipal accounts that need to be changed into your name, things like any clearance certificates that you need to be sent. All those things will be sent to you and they will have a communication with you around that. And this is now once you have, of course, agreed on the offer and you've taken the offer from the bank. Once you've done all that, this thing gets registered in the title deeds office and you then eventually will get lodged in the title deeds office. And that's probably one of the best emails that you will get because you now get your property, but it also means now your loan or your bond is in full effect and the bank will be expecting a first payment probably at the end of that month. So then you move into your house and it is amazing. And in the second part of this video, when I do come back with another video, I'll talk a little bit about moving in, what are some of the real costs that are going to hit you like a ton of bricks, and also how expensive actually having a house is and the maintenance costs, but also how great it can be as an investment. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys on the next one. Mwah.